You're checking in with the doctor for the greatest fantasy baseball podcast in the world, starring your hosts, Dr. Fantasy.
I'm ready to rock and roll today.
And Rydawg.
Harrison Masturbator.
Welcome to Doc and Dog, your fantasy baseball geniuses, presented by the Fantasy Holics.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Doc and Dog, presented by the Fantasy Holics. My name is Jordan Jaika, aka Dr. Fantasy, and I am here with my co-host Rydawg. And Rydawg, are you ready to talk about the Chicago White Sox?
Let's talk about some White Sox baseball.
I'm ready to go. I know there's a particular young outfielder that I really like on the White Sox, so I'll try not to talk too long about him, but we'll go through him. And we are in the middle of our MLB mini series here, and we are breaking down each and every lineup, rotation, a few impact prospects, and what it means for your fantasy league. So once again, this is presented by the Fantasy Holics. Make sure you like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at FantasyHolics1. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Dr. Fantasyholic. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure you check out our new website, thefantasyholics.com. So, with that being said, let's jump into the projected lineup here for the Chicago White Sox. Number one for them is Tim Anderson, who is their shortstop. He is currently going pick 91. So he had a huge year last year, as most people know. He batted .320-something, had a crazy high average, scored a lot of runs, stole some bases. Was a former pretty big prospect. And anytime you can get a 2020 guy, I think pick 90 is a great value for him. I feel like there's still some other shortstops later on in the draft that can provide even more value, but I can't argue with a 2020 guy. Let me mention, it was .335 that he hit last year, by the way, so even higher than I was saying. So I definitely don't expect him to hit .335 every year. I think he's more of a .280 hitter, and I think a lot of people are drafting him as a top 10 shortstop, anticipating him to really duplicate what he did last year, which would be really surprising to me. But, I think that you got to temper your expectations on him. He's more of a 20 home run, 20 steal kind of guy, .280 average. He's going to score some runs at the top of this lineup just because he has some good players hitting behind him. But I'm going to temper my expectations a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we discussed it, though, when we say there's shortstops later you can take when we talk about those first and second round guys. Anderson's definitely one that comes to mind. I mean, yeah, he's not going to hit .335 again. Who the hell are we kidding, right? I mean, he's still a high average hitter nonetheless. Like you said, a .280 guy, 20, 25 home runs, 25 stolen bases. He's a guy I would take at 91. I mean, I'd be pretty satisfied if I missed out on those shortstops and I had to settle for him. So I'd be happy.
Yeah, no, and I agree. At 90, he does offer good value. I don't want to make it seem like I'm too down on him. I just don't know if he's worth or I don't want people to think he's going to hit .335, because I know a lot of people that are all in on him, and they think he's going to be the next big thing. And I guess if he is, 90 is an even better value.
Yep.
Batting second in that lineup is Yoan Moncada, playing third base for him. He is currently going 65th overall. I think maybe I'm in the minority that really likes Moncada. I mean, he was a huge prospect coming up. I mean, and he ripped the ball last year. I mean, he makes solid, hard contact very consistently, which is something I always look for in a hitter. He could definitely improve the strike zone discipline a little bit, but that's kind of normal in a young hitter. But I think based on the improvements he made last season, I think that he can continue that long term. Do I think 65 offers a ton of value? Maybe not. I think it's more of a fair price. If it's definitely value if he's able to completely repeat last season. Had a huge year with 30 home runs plus, a ton of RBIs. He's going to score runs at the top of this lineup. I like him. I think that if you miss out on the top few third basemen, obviously he doesn't offer the value of Josh Donaldson, But once you get beyond Moncada and Josh Donaldson in this range, the third basemen really start to drop off quickly. So I think that's really your last chance to grab one of the top third basemen. And he's going right around the ninth third baseman off the board. And at that value, I really can't argue.
You really can't. I'm on the fence. This is the guy that I am definitely. I don't know if I like him. I don't know if I hate him. Last year, he finally broke through. 65 for a guy that hasn't been consistent his whole career. I don't know. 65 is also at the same time. It could be really great value if he repeats what he did last year. He doesn't have the second base eligibility, which I don't like.
Yep.
He has the third base eligibility now. And we discussed in a previous pod where we talked about Donaldson and the higher offense that's going later. We talked about Matt Chapman. Also, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
no,
fair value. It's fair.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's fair value, and we talk about guys that we don't know about, like Starling Marte, right? Or we talk about it's fair value. It's not a ceiling. It's not a decline. It's a fair price. I think that's where we're at with Moncada, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I personally think that he's going to continue what he did last year, just based on what I saw. And, you know, everyone always thought he had that ability. It was just whether or not he could put it together. And from what I saw last season, I think that he has. But when you're talking fantasy drafts, he's a guy that I target, and I probably play a little differently, and I take a lot of risks in the draft. One of the reasons being I think baseball is a very long season, and if you don't necessarily hit on a guy like him in the draft, you can probably make up for it on the waiver wire at some point if you scour enough. That's always been my philosophy. I'm very aggressive in drafts. But when you look at the risk reward of Moncada, I mean, it's very, very risky. Very, very risky. But the reward can also be very high. So if you're looking for a more low risk, high reward, he's not your guy. But at that spot, I think that he can be a top 20 player for fantasy purposes. So when you look at it that way, you know, he offers good value. But when you look at the risk reward proposition there, it definitely, I understand why people are low on him.
For sure.
Then go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I'm just saying, I mean, I think that he is definitely, for the record, a highly scouted prospect, and he has the ability to be a top 20 guy, but 60s, oh, man. If he was going in the 70 or 80, I think that would be a difference maker. Like, okay, sign me up. 60 it's early.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I look at it is Devers right now is going around pick 28 or so. And, I mean, the Red Sox have a better lineup. There's no doubt about that. But, I mean, I don't really know if the difference between Devers and Moncada is as much as people think. I think Devers has done it a little, I mean, not even much longer. I think he's had 2 good seasons. And Moncada's had 1. But I think they're similar players that can be top 20 guys.
I agree. I can agree with that for sure.
Number 3 in this lineup is Jose Abreu, their first baseman. He's currently going pick 77. He's once again one of those guys, an older guy that I'm always like, you know, I'm not taking Jose Abreu. But when you look at it, I mean, he always rips 35 home runs. He's really not declining much. So I really can't argue with taking him in that second tier of first baseman once you get, once again, beyond Alonso and Bellinger. You know, he fits right into that middle tier of first baseman, and he's consistent. If you're looking for a guy that's going to get you a consistent 35 home runs, he's going to drive in a good amount of runs with Anderson and Moncada ahead of him. You know, once again, I think it's fair value. I don't know if it's a tremendous buy or bad value. I just think it's fair.
I agree. For Abreu, that's very fair value, especially with first baseman.
Batting 4th in that lineup right now, they have Yasmani Grandal, who is their catcher. He also has first base eligibility if you want to play him there. He is currently going as the 3rd catcher off the board at pick 102. I mentioned it before. I like Mitch Garver better 30 picks later. I think Grandal is solid. He's going to get you a higher average than those guys. Get you 20 to 25 home runs. He's going to drive in 70, 80 runs. So very solid option. I feel like the value isn't great compared to some of the other catchers. maybe that you can grab in Will Smith, a guy that you like, and even Mitch Garver. So, once again, I like to try to grab one of the top few catchers because I think after that it's just a crapshoot. And I know a lot of people go the opposite way and they'll just participate in the crapshoot, but I don't always necessarily like to play that game if I can avoid it. But not a guy that I overly target, though. I could see why he's the third catcher coming off the board, but I'm hesitant.
I'm hesitant too about taking Rydawg. I would rather wait later and take, like you said, Garver or Will Smith. That's where I stand.
Yep. Number 5 in that lineup is the old reliable Edwin Encarnacion. He only has DH/util eligibility. He is currently going pick 185, so a good 100 picks after Nelson Cruz, a good 30, 40 picks after Chris Davis, other util eligible guys. Edwin Encarnacion's a little different to me than those other older guys who haven't really shown any signs of declining. Encarnacion has slowly showed decline. It hasn't been quick. It's been very slow. If you look at his hard hit percentages, he still hits the ball pretty hard, but it's been slowly declining over the past few years. So I think he's a guy that's in the decline. I can't, once again, if you're looking for home runs later in the draft, I can't argue with it. But to me, I don't think he offers much upside, even though he's going really late.
For sure. And we talk about the 100-pick difference between him and Cruz. Cruz also hits 50 points higher for batting average, too. So we can't forget that. And his RBIs is about 20 to 30 more. If you're, like you said, if you're going for power, and Encarnacion's your guy, but I wouldn't want to rely on him as my only first baseman at the same time.
Yep. I agree. Number 6 in that lineup is a guy that he might be the most polarizing, along with Vlad Guerrero. There's always a lot of debate about Vlad Guerrero, but the opinions on Eloy Jimenez really are all over the board this year. So he's batting 6th for him as of right now in the outfield, going pick 62 right now. He's a guy I'm on the fence with. I saw he's going right around the same spot as Yoan Moncada. I saw a lot of positive signs from Moncada last year. I also saw a lot of positive signs from Jimenez, but I also don't think he's ever going to hit as high of an average as Moncada. There's no doubt Jimenez offers 40 home run potential, but based on his advanced metrics, I don't think he has as much upside. And I might be in the minority there. I think he does have the ability to improve. I don't know. I'm just not sold on him at 62. I think he has potential, but I haven't seen enough yet. I've seen more from Moncada where I'm more comfortable with it. Me personally, I haven't seen enough from Jimenez where I'm comfortable in that spot.
I agree. The spots are 2 points more. If you're going to make me choose one at 60 or 62, I'll take Moncada. But let's talk about the outfielding prospects of it, right? So you have Jimenez going at 60. Well, I'm sitting here thinking, why am I going to take Jimenez at 60 when I can very well take Eddie Rosario, who we've talked about in previous pod, who I just love. I love everything there is about Rosario and Springer. You can take those guys around the same value. Well, Springer maybe is going a little early, actually, but Rosario, you know what you're going to get out of him. He's going 11 picks later, I believe, and I'm all on board. He's shown consistency in the past. And that's what I look for when I'm drafting these middle. I need to show me what you've done in the past. And that's what I'm about. So I would definitely wait on the Rosario or even Laureano or the Confortos that we've talked about before as well. I'd rather get the value elsewhere.
Yep. Yeah, no, and that's where I think I stand. I love so many of those guys, and we talked about Kepler even before. I love so many of those guys going in the 100 to 140 range that there's not many outfielders I'm crazy about anywhere from, I'll say, 60 to 90. A lot of those guys I'm not crazy about just because as soon as you get to 90 to 130-ish, there's so much great value. So I think I'd agree with that.
For sure.
Number 7 behind him right now is Nomar Mazara. No longer with the Rangers. He was a pretty decent prospect coming up with the Rangers. Really not being drafted right now, going pick 246 with a low ownership percentage. kind of has capped upside. I think a lot of people still look at him as, he has the upside of, he's still young. He's not old yet, but he just hasn't performed up to expectations. So he doesn't have a ton of upside to me. Not a guy that I'm targeting, not a guy that I'm drafting.
I would completely agree with that. Mazzara also, make this a note, Mazzara got sent down last year. Not because he got hurt. No, he got sent down to work on his mechanics as a hitter. He couldn't see. He couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat last year. He was god awful. I'm staying far away from Mazzara as possible. I wouldn't even want him on my bench. The guy is just a trash can, in my opinion. I mean, he's just not talented. He was so highly scouted. And out of all the guys we discussed with, Swanson or Buxton, whoever, this guy has to be the worst because those guys, they haven't lived up to their potential either, but they never got sent down to work on their mechanics after Mazzara's been in the league for 5 years and he still had to get sent down to work on his hitting. That's pretty bad in my opinion.
Yep.
So that's how I'll leave it like that.
Sayonara, no more Mazzara. Nice knowing you.
Nice knowing you. Rydawg's not a fan of you.
Number 8 in this lineup is Luis Robert, their rookie outfielder, currently going pick 97. I will say the first thing. So I love Luis Robert. Let me preface what I'm going to say with that. He's one of my favorite players in baseball right now. I'm a little disappointed that he's listed 8th in their lineup, and I think that some of his upside is going to be capped if he bats 8th. I think he's too talented to bat 8th. I think that pretty quickly he's going to move himself in that lineup. Where is still to be seen. I think that they could put him in the 2 spot and then move Moncada to 3, Abreu 4, and then just kind of move everybody down from there. I think that I would construct the lineup that way, and it would look a lot better for the lineup and for Luis Roberts' fantasy value. But I think that given a full season, I think that he's going to be an Acuna type. I really think that he's that talented. I think he's a 30 home run, 30 steal guy. Maybe not in his rookie year. Maybe you're looking more at 25 and 25, which is still not bad. But I think a lot of people have a problem with him going in that 97 range. But to me, I just think he's too talented. This goes back to me being very aggressive with guys like this when I draft. If I can get a potential 30-30 guy going almost pick 100, I'm all for it. And I've watched him play quite a bit, and I think that people talk about his high K rate. That really doesn't concern me because that's baseball now. I mean, almost everybody in the league has a high K rate. His K rate is very similar to what Pete Alonso's was in the minors, and nobody's really talked about that. So, the K rate just doesn't concern me. Will it take a few months for him to get adjusted to major league pitching? I mean, absolutely, but that's pretty common for any rookie. But I think by the end of the season, he's a guy that you could be talking about as a potential first or second round pick in drafts the year after. I'm that high on him. I'll take him every day in the 10th round and a million times on game day, not just twice, a million times.
A million times. I like Robert too. He's got that potential, and you mentioned it, and I couldn't agree anymore. Every hitter nowadays, there's an exception of very, very few that doesn't have a high K rate. A lot of young guys really have a high K rate, so that's definitely uncommon in my opinion. 97 at Robert, I'm all on for it, especially if you end up getting him. You won't get him that low in a dynasty startup, though, but if you can get him low enough at a dynasty startup, I'm all in for him as well.
So we did a dynasty startup a few months ago, and I don't think most people realize, but I took him in the 8th round, so I was really happy with that. I love Luis Robert. I think that given a year or two, he's going to be a first round pick in the same breath as Acuna and Mike Trout. And I know that's crazy to say that, but I really think he's that talented. I mean, and not to mention, he batted right around 300 in the minor leagues. I'm just going to keep going. All right, I'm done.
He's definitely got the potential, though. I completely agree. And I actually had him queued up next. He was on my top 3 short list when we did that dynasty startup. I think I needed pitching. That's why I had to avoid him. Well, he definitely has that ability. I'm not
I would
going to
never
deny that.
avoid it.
I would never, like my love for Soto and Trey Turner, your love for Luis Robert. I never knew it was that high.
It is. Let's see. Number 9 in that lineup right now, they have Lurie Garcia playing second for him. I'm going to switch it over more, and I think Nick Madrigal most likely is going to be taking over that spot. They've said that he could start off the year playing second base for him. We'll see if he's there on opening day, but if this season gets canceled, I definitely think that he'll be their starting second baseman the year after. He's a guy that is going later in draft, Madrigal, that is going pick 247. He offers the ability to steal some bases. If he ever gets to hit higher in that lineup, I like him even more. In the 9 spot, I'm not as crazy about him, but once again, he's a guy that might get you 20 steals at the end of the draft, so I like the value of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. The value there is for sure undeniably great.
All right, let's move over to the rotation then. And we will kick it off with Lucas Giolito, who is their number 1 pitcher, a guy that I know you're absolutely in love with, and I'm shaking my head no.
By far.
But he's currently going pick 64. I'm actually on the other side of you. I think sometimes, he was one of the top prospects in baseball coming up. I think sometimes that guys just put it all together and that they improve and that they take the next step forward. And I think Giolito has ace ability, and I think that he finally put it together last year. I personally don't think it was a blip on the radar. And the biggest thing was he improved his control, which he struggled with previously. And when as soon as you see a pitcher improve their control, to me that's the green light to move forward and for him to take the next step forward. All of his metrics were very solid. The biggest thing I guess I would say is I don't know if he'll have a better season than last year. I think last year is kind of his ceiling. And I don't know if people are drafting him with the expectation that he's going to do even bigger things, but I think last year's a good baseline, a 3.5 ERA, 200 Ks. But I think those are solid numbers to get at pick 64. So once again, I'll say I guess I don't think it's great value, but I think it's fair for what he can provide.
Yeah, so, it's fair value for sure at 64 for a guy that had over 200 strikeouts last year. Giolito definitely, he put it together. I'm just salty as a Nats fan that this is what we traded to get Eaton. He's a decent player. He's definitely seems like he's put it together. And like you discussed, we discussed this a lot with young pitchers finding control. That's the one thing that they need to really succeed in the MLB. And he definitely found it last year. I think for me, he needed the better pitching coach pitching to help him. And I think the White Sox have offered that to him that the Nats couldn't, and that helps him become a better pitcher and become the pitcher he is today. So I'm all on board for it.
I'm sure that was very hard for you to say.
Oh my gosh.
I think I need to pause it and give you a moment to yourself.
No, not at all. I'm biased this year.
Moving on to the rest of their rotation here. Number 2 is Dallas Keuchel, currently going pick 212. He absolutely got rocked last year. I don't really have him on my draft radar at all. And I'll talk quickly about their number 3 guy and then switch it over to you to see if you have any notes. Number 3 in their rotation is Reynaldo Lopez, currently going pick 246. I actually know some people that like him as a late round flyer. I'm not a big fan of his from what I saw last year. I think he offers very limited upside. He doesn't have great movement on his pitches, and I think as soon as I see that, I kind of jump off ship for a pitcher. And he had okay. He got hit around pretty well last year, but some people see more upside in him. I personally don't. And I think that he's going to continue to get rocked for the next few years if he is in the majors, but I'm not really high on either Keuchel or Lopez.
Yeah, I'm not either. If I had to choose one, I'll choose Keuchel. Lopez, for me, unlike Giolito, who has found his control, Lopez hasn't found it yet, and his pitches are wild. Like, they're bad. The location is horrible. So, if I have Lopez as my third pitcher, I'd be scared if I were any organization.
And then 4 and 5 for them is Dylan Cease right now being picked 248th overall. Decent ownership percentage, so he is being drafted. And then number 5 is Gio Gonzalez. Starting with number 5, Gio Gonzalez. He's more of a streamer for me. He's a little older now. Not a guy that I'm overly crazy on. I think he kind of is what he is at this point in his career. Dylan Cease is a guy I've taken later in drafts a few times. I think he has a ton of upside. He's another guy in this rotation that, and maybe it's just a common theme here, that he needs to improve his control as well. He's not quite as wild as Lopez, but we already saw with Giolito that he was able to put it together. Maybe they're able to do that in a similar fashion for Cease, which I think is very, very within the realm of possibility. So that's one of the reasons that I like him. I could see him following a Giolito path and having a really strong season with improved control.
I completely agree with that. I mean, if I had to choose one of those as a streamer, I'm going to go with Giolito to stream for sure, though. But I'm not in love with him either. I like Giolito for what he is, though.
Then one other guy I'll mention quickly. I'm not sure exactly where he's going to fit into this rotation, whether it's Lopez gets bumped, which would be the decision that I made, or maybe they bump a guy like Keuchel or Gio as a veteran out. Probably less likely, or even Cease if they're not sold on him. Michael Kopech, who is one of the top prospects in baseball, coming off Tommy John surgery. It looks like he should be ready. If this season is canceled, he's definitely a guy I'm going to target next season because he'll have even longer to rest and really recover and prepare. But he has a ton of upside. He's going later in drafts, pick 236 right now. Very low ownership percentage. But if you're in a deeper league, I don't mind stashing him on the bench. He might struggle a little bit in the beginning coming off that injury, but he's always shown the ability in the minors to be an ace. And I think that I like upside like that at the end of the drafts personally.
I completely agree. The upside's there for Kopech. He has all the potential in the world, and him and Giolito will be a decent pair going forward if Kopech hits his ceiling.
Yep, that's for sure. Their bullpen quickly, they have Alex Colome going pick 152, Steve Cishek going 235, and Aaron Bummer going 243. Cishek and Bummer, more holds guys. Both offer pretty good value there. Colome, I know a lot of people like. I think the the White Sox, whatever team we're talking about now. I think the White Sox are going to be right around a 500 team. I think that based on their lineup rotation, from what I see, right around 500, maybe a few wins over 500. But Colome will have some opportunities. Going pick 152, I think, is fair. Once again, when you're looking at closers, he's going right in the middle of the pack, and they're a middle pack team, so I think that's appropriate.
I agree. Colome is a decent closer for an average team. So, I mean, it's not a reach at all. And I think I agree. They're like a 81 team. They're about 500.
In that range. Then finishing it up with their impact prospects, they are currently ranked 11th in the majors as far as their farm is concerned. We've really mentioned most of these guys already. A very major league ready farm system. Luis Robert will be up. Michael Kopech, whenever the season does start, he should be ready to go. Nick Madrigal should be up in short order, playing second. Only other guy they really have at this point is Zach Collins, who's a catcher/first baseman. His role is really undefined right now. Maybe I see him more coming up once Edwin Encarnacion retires. Maybe switch Jose Abreu to a DH role, and Zach Collins can play first for you. But at this point, probably not going to be up this season with a shortened season. But he'll offer a lot of power at the catcher position if he is eligible there when he comes up.
Yeah, and I actually like Collins a lot. I watch a lot of Miami Hurricanes baseball. He was decent in college. He was really fun to watch. He has really raw power. So we'll see if he can find a role. He was up last year, but he didn't really do much with it since it was his first, couple ABs as a rookie. So not many rookies really tear it off the bat anyway. I take it really sucks because they just signed a catcher too, and you have a catcher that's I think it's pro ready. So this farm system is definitely, most of them are, like you said, major league ready. So I'm excited to see what the White Sox can do this year.
Me too, especially that Luis Robert guy.
That Luis Robert fella.
Any other notes you want to make on the White Sox?
I think that's it for me, Doc.
All right, so that is all that we have now. So thank you once again, everyone, for tuning in. This has been another episode of Doc and Dog, presented by the Fantasy Holics. Make sure you like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at FantasyHolics1. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Dr. FantasyHolic. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to check out our new website, thefantasyholics.com. So once again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.